we think of climate change, there are generally three camps. People who deny its existence entirely, dismissing it as a Chinese hoax. Those who say it's real but not an immediate concern, and those who say it's the biggest threat to our national security. This is a debate, and I use that word loosely, that has been going on for decades, and the world hasn't ended yet, right? But there's a newly released report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, also known as the IPCC, that seems to have a lot of people worried. Is this fear warranted? Are we really screwed this time? We're going to take a look at the latest report and come to grips with how serious the situation is and if there's anything we can do to mitigate it. Quick disclaimer, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you don't deny the decades of research that have been conducted on this subject. Let's start with the basics. Based on years of research from scientists around the world, the Earth is experiencing higher than normal temperatures, largely caused by the burning of fossil fuels, and those fossil fuels releasing high levels of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. These rising temperatures create a dangerous cycle, causing ice to melt, which releases more greenhouse gases like methane, further increasing the global temperature. As global temperatures rise, we're going to see an increase in erratic weather conditions, like droughts and hurricanes and the things that come along with them, like flooding and wildfires. Sounds pretty scary, right? Well, keep in mind that we are currently experiencing the effects of climate change in our present day, and if unaddressed, it's only going to get worse. Increased hurricanes, droughts, floods, wildfires, you name it. We're experiencing it now, and it should be in everyone's best interest to mitigate this regardless of your political affiliation. Think about it this way. If you get a serious illness, are you going to spend the whole time debating about what caused it, or are you going to go seek treatment? So before getting into the details of the report, keep in mind that while this report may be a little scary, there's still action that we can take to prevent the worst effects of climate change. To start off, the report makes it perfectly clear that global temperatures are the highest they've ever been in modern human history, and that this change is not natural. This spike in global temperatures is directly correlated with increased CO2 emissions. Seriously, that spike around the mid-20th century looks like a Tesla stock just ran up. The IPCC has urged world leaders to try to keep climate warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. If the global temperature exceeds that limit, we can expect changes including severe droughts in some areas of the globe and floods in others, including the possibility of our beloved coastal cities being submerged underwater. Yes, New York City is estimated to be submerged underwater by the year 2100, and Miami is already pumping water out of their city as we speak. The bad news is that we're kind of too late to stop this increase from occurring. Even if we were to stop burning fossil fuels today, the increase would continue for a couple more decades. We're close to reaching that dreaded tipping point in which all the effects of climate change compound and accelerate the global rise in temperatures even further. A great example of this is the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rainforest is historically what's called a carbon sink, meaning it absorbs more CO2 than it releases. This means that it acts as a sort of protection against climate change. However, increased wildfires have been burning through the Amazon at an alarming rate, not only destroying this barrier of protection, but also releasing 1.5 billion tons of CO2 into the atmosphere in the process. So here's the bad news. Because of all those wildfires, for the first time in history, the Amazon rainforest now produces more CO2 than it absorbs and is no longer a carbon sink. So with all this being said, what can we do about it? Sadly, there's not much you can do as an individual, but you can vote for representatives who believe climate change exists and are willing to take actions to mitigate it. Installing solar panels in your home and buying an electric car is great and all, but it won't put a dent in this when Carnival cruise ships alone emit 10 times more CO2 than all the cars in Europe put together, or when the military produces more greenhouse gases than entire countries like Sweden and Switzerland. This is going to take a global effort from leaders around the world. The International Paris Climate Agreement is a pretty good start, but we have a long way to go if we want to prevent a climate apocalypse.